And hello and good morning. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv, B-O-L-E-S dot T and a V. This is the live stream. You can find our video on demand, hosted on YouTube with closed captions, if you just go to boles.live, L-I-V-E, Boles.live. Oh, the hair's a mess this morning. Oh, it's all over the place. Well, it's been an interesting morning so far. As you can tell, our music is sort of there, and our music is sort of not there. For some reason, Slipstream is misbehaving again. So we're back with Pretzel Rocks. We're trying to find the exact right. I'm playing with the sound to see if we can find a happy medium for our background music compared to our normal streaming schedule. So Pretzel Rocks, once again, saves the day when Slipstream goes down. And I knew I was in trouble when I first started. That's why we were a little late, because I couldn't get the music to go. Because Slipstream said, you're not signed in. And I signed in, and it just said, you're not signed in. Then I tried again, and it said, oh, no, now you're signed in. So I click on the shuffle to play the music, which is what we do, the curated music. And it plays one song and stops. So I go back into Slipstream and I click again. And it plays one song and stops. That's not shuffle playing, people. So Pretzel Rocks, if it's a little loud, you can tell me. So I go right back into Pretzel. Set it up for instrumental and YouTube safe, as well as streaming safe. And here we are today, on our lovely day here in the New York City area, where we have slightly sunny skies, 42 degrees, and sports is next. Just kidding. Are you watching the Olympics? Me either. You know, the Olympics, when you were young, when I was young, used to be a big deal. You'd come home from school and you'd watch it on television all day and all night. And now the Olympics is ubiquitous in a bad way. It's everywhere. You can watch it on 10 different channels and 10 different things, so you can't ever find one thing you want to watch. And the one thing that's curated in prime time, you already know the results. It's not interesting. And so you wonder what happened. Is it all just about money now? Selling out to the highest bidder and the person who has the biggest bucks? Probably so. And there's some winners and there's some losers. And the commentators aren't even in China. They're in Stamford, Connecticut. Because they don't want to deal with the Chinese protocols. So if one person gets sick, they're quarantined for 2 weeks. Now you can do that with a star commentator. So, like they did in the last Olympics, they're sitting in a studio watching just like us, talking into a microphone, and watching everything happen right here on a screen. Not very interesting, not terribly authentic. But the camera people are there, the technical people are on site, because I guess they don't matter if they get COVID. If your technical director is sick and gets quarantined for 2 weeks, well, okay, just put him in the place where you go to recover. But oh no, if it's your commentator, oh, they can't get sick. I find it all very bizarre. Let's ask the 8-ball. Will the Olympics ever recover their former broadcast glory? Oops, I spelled it wrong. Absolute no. The 8-ball has spoken. I don't control the 8-ball. I just ask the questions. And while we're talking about questions, here's our Discord server, which I find is a very interesting place to go and hang out. Now, that's our private Discord server. Not much going on there right now, but there is stuff there. But we talked about NFTs yesterday. And art. And a lot of these NFT artists have Discord servers. And when you get on their server and you start looking around, you see there are special deals out there that regular people who are not part of the Discord server don't know about. You can get stuff like for half price. So if you don't want to pay full price for a work of NFT art, don't go online and buy it. Go on the Discord server and get the private link. That was a big shocker. So now we'll take a look at what's happening in the world. And this made me sort of happy in sort of a maudlin way. It's candy in America. Candy consumption in America has risen 47% since last year. Now why? Well, I think we know why. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They don't want this COVID. They want to drown their misery in a box of chocolates. 83% of Americans eat more than 5 servings of candy a month. Now, what is a serving? Servings are interesting. I don't think a serving is a package. A lot of packages of food and candy are 2 servings. Only 4% of Americans don't eat candy at least once a month. Probably old people and diabetics, because most people love to have some chocolate. The 2 candies dominated the popularity contest, with M&M's being the most popular in 20 states and Skittles coming a close second with 17. Now that's interesting because they're totally opposite types of candy. One is chocolate and one is just pure sugar. Now, it doesn't look like, I don't know how this was decided. It looks like it was decided very narrowly about one brand of candy, because there's no Twix, there's no Mars Bar, Almond Joy. Come on now. But here you go. Find your state. Pick it. Very interesting that in the South and in the Rust Belt, Skittles are the #1 candy. And in the Midwest and on the left coast, they prefer M&M's. I don't know why. It's very fascinating to me. Good old Nebraska right there in the middle. M&M's, same as California. And in New York, M&M's for the win. And in New Jersey, shockingly, Skittles. And it looks like Reese's have sort of a foothold in the upper northeastern corridor of the United States of America. Fascinating. So there you go. That's your candy. I hope I'm not making you hungry. Now, a lot of these candies have sugar-free versions. There's sugar-free peppermint patties. Is that what they call them? Peppermint patties? There's sugar-free Jolly Ranchers. Sugar-free Werther's Originals. I might even have some right here. Sugar-free Hershey's. Here they are. And they taste just like the original. So if you're diabetic, or if you're trying to, watch your weight or try to eat a little bit healthier, excuse me, here are the answers. Jolly Ranchers are shockingly, surprisingly delicious. So there you go. Candies across America. Well, Barry Diller's kind of had it, I guess, with traditional media publishing, and he's closing a lot of magazines. Online, in person, in paper. And I don't think that's good for publishing. I don't think it's good for readers. I don't think it's good for writers. Barry Diller's media group is stopping the print circulation of 6 of the magazines it acquired when it bought Meredith last year, Meredith Broadcasting, part of an effort to turn these publications into digital-only brands. The company will stop publishing print editions for Entertainment Weekly, In Style, Eating Well, Health, Parents, and People in Espanol, Dot Dash. Meredith CEO Neil Vogel said in a memo to staff, which was reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, those are dead and gone, which I find slightly dismaying. Even though I don't think any of those magazines are my taste or type, I don't like seeing paper being put out of business. Well, we talked about NFTs yesterday, and it's very interesting. Maybe some money laundering, but when you get into it, people are really crazy about their NFTs. They love buying artwork and saying that they have ownership of it in a certain way. But it is ownership in the way that when you buy a CD that you own the CD. It's ownership in a way that when you have a license from Pretzel Rocks to play behind your live stream, you are owning that music. You own it, but you don't own it. It's not a big deal. But NFTs allow you to prove that you do have the right to use that piece of work that you're using. Italian luxury car maker Alfa Romeo has revealed they will be using non-fungible tokens, NFTs, to track and store maintenance records on the blockchain for its new tonale or tunnel. I don't know. I don't know why you would call a new car a toenail, but I have a feeling that's what a lot of people are going to call it. The Alfa Romeo toenail. SUV. Alfa Romeo, which is owned by Stellantis, formerly Fiat Chrysler, appears to be the first car maker to utilize NFTs in this way, seemingly in a bid to bring back transparency and efficiency to a car market that often relies on third parties to track car records. It's a very interesting idea. Nothing to do with art, everything to do with the blockchain. Digitalization is a key enabler of our metamorphosis. Francesco Colla, head of marketing at Alfa Romeo, said in a media briefing, the NFTs will sustain the residual values of our models, as we are the first in the market to adopt this next generation technology. Okay. I think it's a wonderful idea. Why not? The company says the car's NFT will be able to generate a certificate from records of its maintenance data, but only for service done by certified dealers. Not a catch. That's kind of in-network. Access to the blockchain, very important. The integration is the latest example of growing, useful NFT market, which includes use cases for the technology that emphasize function over form. Other recent useful NFT examples include a real estate company minting a housing deed as an NFT, healthcare companies working on encrypting and transferring medical records as NFTs, and tokens serving as proof of ownership for physical collectibles. Very interesting. My question is, who's paying the gas? That's the number one thing you're going to learn when you get into NFTs and buying on the blockchain or the Ethereum network, is that it's not a tax, it's more like a fee. That when you buy something online, an NFT, you have to pay to get it from there to here. And that costs money. And sometimes it can cost you $5, and sometimes, depending on network congestion, it can cost you $100. And if you're buying something, you pay it. Now, some artists have what they call airdrops, where you send them your wallet ID, and they will charge you a flat fee, right? And they will pay the gas for you. Now, that's a sweet setup, because you never know what the gas is going to be. And you try to calculate it into your purchase, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm $88 short because I didn't calculate in the gas fee. And they say, well, it's congested right now, so try again later. Well, if you try again later, the price could be even higher, or it could be lower. Watch for airdrops. The IDF revealed its artificial intelligence war data factory and strategy on Tuesday as part of Tel Aviv University's Virtual AI Week. Although the military has been using AI for some time, including during the Gaza war in 2021, a new AI strategy was approved by IDF Chief of Staff a few weeks ago. Data and AI can actually win wars. Okay. Not only arms, physical jets, and submarines. The speed at which we can create a new weapon is totally different from creating a physical weapon. It is dramatically more flexible and adaptive than any kind of AI network, including long delays and resources needed for purchasing an F-35 and most other new weapons for troops on the ground. A major recent advancement by the IDF has been digital networking in the cloud between all forces, including headquarters, frontline command centers, and troops in the field. But the military is starting a new digital advancement beyond the cloud. There still will be a cloud network for interactions between headquarters and frontline units, but the military will now improve with edge data architecture that will enable an edge local course for speed and cloud course for completeness. Now, edge means how close you are to what's being sent and broadcast. Amazon is probably the clearest example of what an edge network is. They have a data center on the West Coast, the East Coast, all over the world. But if you're pulling something from a West Coast server and you're on the East Coast, it's going to be slow. So the network talks to each other, the Amazon network, and they say, hey, this guy is closer to our East Coast server, so let's have him pull all of his stuff from our East Coast server because it'll save us time and him time, and it will run faster instead of having him pull from just one place. And small broadcasters and small publishers have just one data center and not 100 all over the world. So if someone from Argentina is trying to pull a story or an article from a small publisher in the Midwest on their server, it can get overloaded pretty quickly. So edge speed. This essentially means the military will be building mini clouds or networks for each of its arms and sometimes smaller subdivisions so they can process and receive data even faster than in the current network. Makes a lot of sense. And so if one part of it goes down, another part of it gets stronger and takes over. You want to have multiple places of impact in case you get hit a couple places, especially, I guess, in war. For example, a wide variety of data points could put together sensory detection of an enemy, evaluate who the enemy was, check the various IDF options within range to respond, analyze how much fuel different drones or other units have remaining, and then quickly dispatch the most ideal targeting order. So what you described with the IDF and AI is just exactly what Amazon, excuse me, and Microsoft, and all these big server farms, Google, that's what they do every day, all day. They try to get you closest to the proper edge server and then dissipate the burden of translating and sending information. It's a smart move. Now, we've talked a lot about censorship on this live stream over the past few weeks. And here's just a wonderful article recently published from Book Riot. And we're just going to scroll through this because it's so fascinating. And what book censorship looks like outside of the United States. We've been talking a lot about Tennessee, and we talked about Maus and Art Spiegelman yesterday. Well, what's going on in the rest of the world? How do they handle it? Well, let's take a little scroll through the rest of the world. In Asia, China, and Hong Kong. In China, it's known that materials, books criticizing the Chinese Communist Party are always banned, and that includes websites. The Great Wall of China, the Great Firewall of China is what they call it. And when it comes to books, the censorship in modern China is proactive rather than reactive. Before a book is even published, the content is looked at. In fact, there's a list of words that publishers need to avoid, according to the nonprofit organization World Peace. I'll put this link to this article in chat. There you go, you can take a look at that later. During the Hong Kong Book Fair last year, many booksellers practiced self-censorship. To skirt the security law, they reduced the number of books that might be deemed politically sensitive in their catalogs. One publisher, speaking to the New York Times, said that every vendor would look at the books they bring to the fair to avoid causing trouble. Singapore, a book on censorship of political cartoons was blocked from publication. In the Philippines, a government agency issued a memorandum to universities and colleges to remove subversive materials. In Myanmar, seized by a military junta, where violent protesters occurred last year, there's also a different kind of censorship taking place. Poets are being jailed, and some were even murdered. In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia is allowed to exhibit traditionally banned books last year. The Middle East and the rest of the Arab world, especially Saudi Arabia, are known to be ultra-conservative. And since the Saudi government doesn't want taboo subjects that are considered un-Islamic, a large-scale censorship that affects art is prevalent. Hey, there's Dora. Good morning, Dora. Hope you're doing well. At this festival, however, there were books about Sufism and atheism, according to one resident. There were also books from Western male writers like Leo Tolstoy, Fyodor Dostoevsky, and George Orwell, which may once have been considered taboo. But they're lightening up on that a little bit. Book censorship in Africa. Massive literary censorship of anti-apartheid books was widespread until the 90s in South Africa. Book censorship in Europe. No stranger to literary censorship. From Protestant Reformation and Spanish Inquisition to Soviet Union and Nazi Germany, Europe's book bannings and burnings span a millennia. Hungary. We're just getting started. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban passed the controversial anti-LGBTQ+ law. But even before that, attacks against that community were already rising. A fairy tale retelling the anthology of LGBTQ characters was targeted by far-right politicians. In Italy, a conservative mayor tried banning LGBTQ-themed books in Venice's preschool libraries. In Russia, plagued with forms of censorship echoing a Soviet past. Russia censored an LGBTQ-themed children's book and banned a religious title, among other things. In Canada, everybody loves Canada. Everybody gets along in Canada. In Canada, the French school board burned about 30 books for educational purposes. The ashes from the books were used as fertilizer. Over 4,700 books were also pulled off from library shelves of some 30 schools, destroying them. There you go. In Latin America, another form of censorship arises, not really banning books outright, but vilifying the leader of a book fair in the region. Mexico. Attacking the Guadalajara International Book Fair, one of the most important book fairs in the Spanish-speaking world, cutting off the fair's budget, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. That's another way they try to censor, by just not paying for things. In Oceania, Australia, the biggest country in Oceania, is no different from the other countries in the Anglosphere. One librarian told the Canberra Times that majority of the books banned in the past have something to do with the idea of women taking charge, to which men find uncomfortable. Oh, you wouldn't want to hurt the feelings of a man by having a strong woman in a story. Likewise, majority of the challenges, according to them, came from parents and religious groups. New Zealand? Literary censorship seems more rigorous than of its closest neighbor, Australia. In 2015, the award-winning young adult book Into the River was banned following a complaint by a conservative Christian group. Anyone who would distribute the book at the same time would also be heavily fined. So there you go. Censorship all over the world, not just here in the great old United States de Americana. And on that note, we're going to take our first, but very brief, blood pressure break. Back in one moment. And we are back from break. Hello, I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv. B-O-L-E-S .TV. And we're here every weekday at 9 a.m. Eastern. I want to say God willing, but maybe good luck willing. Who knows? We keep trying every day to show up. Will it work? I don't know. But we're here. We're here. Trying to survive. In a very crazy world. Well, if you don't like this world, the Metaverse is waiting for you. And I can't not talk about the Metaverse because it's just terrifying and frightening. It's all of my favorite things combined. Eugenics, the uncanny valley, the disturbing valley, AI, robots, and Mark Zuckerberg. So all these big companies are scrambling to get into the Metaverse. I don't think people, consumers, customers, participants, are scrambling to get into the Metaverse, but the big companies are. They don't want to be left behind in case this is something big. Is it going to be the new MySpace or the new Google? We don't know. Let's just spend a lot of money to go over there and find out. And that's exactly what's happening. The Metaverse is being taken over by advertising and businesses. And can you imagine one day if a university decides, well, you want a virtual class? Go into the Metaverse. We'll give you a Metaverse degree. That's how these big universities like Harvard and Yale and other places. Well, you can't go there and be an undergraduate and get a degree from there, but you can get a certificate in something. A certificate that you pay a lot of money for, and you can do remotely, and maybe you have to be on campus for a week or two just to say you were there, and you get a certificate in something. I had a friend who got some kind of certificate, I believe, from Yale University in nightclub performance. And she was very proud of it. It made a big difference in her life. She was from the Midwest. I went to Yale, she said. And the next question always needs to be, well, did you graduate and what was your degree? Oh, no. I was in... No, it wasn't... It was cabaret, I believe. Cabaret performance. Which to me is nightclub performance, but I guess it's not. Oh, so you studied at Yale? Yes, I studied at Yale. Yale School of Drama? No. Cabaret singing. Oh, okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but come on now. You don't have to go to Yale to get a certificate in cabaret singing to be a cabaret singer. If you can sing, a cabaret will hire you to perform. And if you can't sing, Yale is not going to make you any better. But for some people, I guess it looks good on a resume, so that's what they do. They put it down. So here's our latest terror. McDonald's is putting down roots, French fry roots, in the metaverse. McDonald's has filed a series of trademarks for a virtual restaurant that will deliver food online and in person. Now, this is the most bizarre, ridiculous thing I have heard in the last 10 minutes, because I hear a lot of ridiculous things all day long. The McDonald's fast food chain joins a long list of other companies who have announced plans to cash in on Web3, including the Metaverse. Web3 is what comes after Web 2.0. Web3, I guess, is immersive worlds. The company filed 10 trademark applications to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on February 4, covering both McDonald's and McCafe. I'll take my McJana right here, right now. Little drink of ice water. One of the trademarks for Mickey D's was for virtual food and beverage products, including NFTs. We can't get away from them. We started the show today talking about NFTs and how they're coming to your car. While another included operating a virtual restaurant online featuring home delivery. It also trademarked entertainment services and events under the McDonald's and McCafe brands, including online, actual, and virtual concerts. I don't know what that phrase means. An online, actual, and virtual concerts. Does actual mean real people? And virtual means the metaverse fake people? I don't know. The Mickey D's trademarks would protect the idea of a McDonald's restaurant in the metaverse that can sell both virtual and real world food. Okay, this is where it gets strange. So say you're hanging out in the metaverse and you get a little hungry. Now, is this you getting hungry or your metaverse person getting hungry? You don't have to put down your headset if you're hungry. You just walk into a McDonald's in the metaverse and you place an order in the metaverse. And then the fourth wall is broken, the mystery is destroyed, as some stranger knocks on your door and delivers the French fries in real life, in real time, that you ordered in the fake metaverse. Now, if that isn't cognitive dissonance, in definition, I don't know what is. Dora says, so the physical stores will be a thing of the past. No one will be hiring anymore. Well, I guess they'll have what they call ghost kitchens. So yeah, you'll go into the metaverse, you'll order your French fries, and in a location near you, an edge, talked about the AI and edge servers, the edge ghost kitchen closest to you will deliver the product. I was going to mention ghosts, yeah. Ghost kitchens are fascinating. A friend of mine has a restaurant very near here, and he has a ghost bakery. So he doesn't do any of his baking on site in his little restaurant, but he has a big bakery about 5 blocks away that bakes for his restaurant and other restaurants in the area. So that's what a ghost kitchen is. It's just a big factory producing food. You don't go and you sit. The employees are wearing gloves and white lab coats and hair nets. and they're just processing food. You don't go in there, there's no ambiance, you don't order anything. You don't even go in there. You don't know it's a ghost kitchen. It's not there. You just go into the Metaverse and order your French fries, and the ghost kitchen delivers it to you 10 minutes later. Cold and soggy. I do say that McDonald's used to have the best French fries ever, and then they changed the oil they were using from beef fat to, what is it, soybean oil. So, the beef fat French fries of my youth are fondly recollected by many people I know. But Wendy's have a new French fry that is made for, I would say, the virtual metaverse world and our world of delivery instead of going in. And I like a crunchy French fry. And the Wendy's fries are very good. They arrive hot and they're crunchy. And they're quite delicious. So whatever they did, they cut it in a triangle somehow. And one side, the largest side of the triangle, is the actual skin of the potato, and the other sides are coated with something? I don't know. But Wendy's got their fries right. They're now my favorite fry. They didn't used to be. So continuing on in our metaverse, Panera Bread filed for trademark for, oh, can you imagine all this? Panaverse. Everything's going to be verse. Boles TV verse. David verse. Doraverse. Artist Doraverse. Claim your domain name right now. Panaverse claimed on February 3rd, which includes NFTs. Now these NFTs are going to be the death of us. I think they're quite wonderful if you have the right artist. But a lot of these NFTs are just really junky stuff that's going to clog up your Ethernet wallet. Ethereum wallet, excuse me. Maybe Ethernet is better. Your Ether wallet, say it that way. Virtual entertainment services and virtual rewards program. Nike has established a metaverse studio and has patented plans for virtual assets, ranging from avatars to crypto kicks. Now, kicks are tennis shoes, in case you don't know, or athletic shoes. So these are shoes you go into the metaverse to purchase from Nike for $200 that you can't wear in real life. While Gucci, Microsoft, and Crocs are also seeking staff to work on their metaverse offerings. So the metaverse is going to be one giant mall with everybody trying to sell you something and nobody there. I think you're going to see every brand that you can think of make these filings within the next 12 months. I don't think anyone wants to be the next Blockbuster and just completely ignore a new technology that is coming. Oh. It sounds very harrowing to me in many ways. So now we'll go back to talk a little bit more about this censorship, especially of Art Spiegelman's mouse, because it just keeps getting weirder and deeper and better from a dramatic point of view. So in Tennessee, a school board in McKean County captured national headlines after it voted last month to remove the graphic novel mouse, removing it from the 8th grade curriculum. And let's see, 8th graders are, 4th graders are 9, 10, 11, 12, so maybe 13 years old? Not to be cut out of the action of censorship and book banning, the mayor of a small city in Mississippi has decided that his religious beliefs give him and him alone the right to decide what everyone else in town can read at the public library. Oh, the humanity, Dora says. Yes. Mayor Gene McGee of Ridgeland, a community of about 24,000 residents, is holding back $110,000 in funding for the county library system. Now, we talked about that earlier. That's one way in our world censorship that these authoritarians try to control the topic. They can't really ban the book, but they can close down the library by turning off the lights because the library can't pay, because they wouldn't give them their funding. Executive director of the county libraries said she reached out to McGee after she failed to receive a quarterly payment from the city. What he told her was surprising. He explained his opposition to what he called homosexual materials in the library, that it went against his personal Christian beliefs, and that because he was mayor, he would not release the money as long as those materials, those homosexual materials, were there. Johnson carefully explained to McGee that the library is not a religious institution and that it must serve the entire community. But the mayor was unmoved. So we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with that. Right now, the library's not getting the money, so it has to close. So here's another take on the mouse controversy of being banned. Some say the book banners want to feed their children fairy tales. But the original fairy tales, not the modern Disney-fied versions of them, were often harsh and frightening stories. Their intention was to warn children and adults away from dealing with the fair folk and dealing with bad behavior. Do so skillfully and you'll be okay, but if you slip up in the slightest, you might find yourself taken away from your family to serve fair folk for centuries, or just forced to dance until you die from exhaustion. And that's what those fairy tales were meant to do. They were meant to put a belief and a value system and a morality into children. And sometimes the children were eaten and put in ovens and toasted by witches. See Hansel and Gretel. The people of McKinn County aren't stupid. That's a good point. The people who there are not making this policy. They are not uneducated. Even though mouse was banned, the people who live there aren't stupid and they're not uneducated. But they're so invested in the way things are supposed to be that they can't see any other way. Deep down they know the world is unfair and unjust, that it will chew them up and spit them out in a minute. To comfort themselves, they tell their children that if they just play along, if they work hard and just follow the rules, everything will work out okay. But Mouse, the book, Mouse reminds us that is a lie. So do dozens of other books similar that people are trying to get taken out of schools and libraries around the country. And then I read this about Art Spiegelman, author and drawer of the book Mouse. Spiegelman acknowledged that he has mixed feelings about his illustrated Holocaust memoir being used in middle schools as Auschwitz for beginners. And this is fascinating. At first, I agreed with the school board, Art Spiegelman said. He said that to a virtual audience of thousands convened, in part by the Jewish Federation of Greater Chattanooga, Tennessee. In some cases, Art Spiegelman said, it may be better for people to wait until they have reached college before they read Mouse. He added, hey board, I'm with you. We shouldn't be teaching this, that, the Holocaust, to young kids who can't understand it, who have no frame of reference. it would be more terrifying than educational. Excuse me. But, Art Spiegelman said, he found the ways in which the McKinn County School Board had objected to his book, including their criticisms of its language, illustrations of dead Jews as mice, and the depiction of Spiegelman's mother in the nude as she committed suicide following the events of the war, deeply troubling. So Art's trying to see both sides. Young kids shouldn't have to deal with Auschwitz, but the reasons you're trying to not have them read my book are ridiculous. They don't have anything to do with what you're trying to say. They want a fuzzier, warmer, gentler Holocaust that shows how great the Americans were when coming in to liberate, Art Spiegelman said. His biggest concern, Spiegelman said, was the strong political headwinds that seemed to be undergirding the board's decision, referencing the outgrowth of new state laws around race education and other subjects, as well as a recent pastor-led book burning near Nashville. Spiegelman said, what's going on now is about controlling what kids can look at, what kids can read, what kids can see. And it makes them less able to think, not more. And it takes the form of criticisms from this board. And just so you know, this is Art Spiegelman. Lives in New York. This is a young picture of him. Here he is as an older guy. Is he a Holocaust survivor? No, his father was. More images of Art. And he's very accessible in his neighborhood. I saw him give an interview on CNN about the book banning. And he is a heavy vapor, as you can see. His vaping thing is in his hand right there. And the whole interview was sucking on his vape pen. He could not live without it. I felt really sort of bad that he's that addicted. And I don't think it's that much more healthy than a cigarette. Some of the coatings. Well, see, there's an old photograph of him with a cigarette, so. It was a fascinating topic to see him vaping the entire interview. There's a cigarette. There's mouse. The Nazis are cats. The Jews are rats. Mice, excuse me, because he's making the Mickey Mouse comparison. Oh, I think that's maybe his vaping pen. Or maybe it's just a regular pen. There he is with Bobby De Niro. That might be a vaping pen. An early vaping pen. But anyway, that's Art. It just goes on and on. It's never going to stop because it's about control. People do terrible things in the name of protecting children. And now we're going to take a very brief blood pressure break. We will be back momentarily. from break. Hello, I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv, B-O-L-E-S.tv, coming to you live from the East Coast of the United States every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and on Saturdays and Sundays at 11 a.m. with Jana Marie Sweetheart, my lovely wife of 33 years, who will teach you some American Sign Language, chat about culture. You can ask her questions about disability. And Jana Marie will be here in 24 hours, 10:15 tomorrow, as she teaches a formal lesson in American Sign Language. And tomorrow is going to be a really, really interesting. One moment. Interesting lesson. What I've asked her to do, and what I think she's going to do... Oh, Dora's back! I guess Metaverse is sought after in the eventuality we all blow each other up, or when we run out of space here on Earth. Well, I think that's what Elon Musk is trying to do with Mars, is to get away from all of this. I mean, the Metaverse requires people to be on Earth, standing somewhere, and then going into this virtual world. And maybe it's more like the Matrix, where everyone's just in a prone position in their own little cubicle, and they live their whole lives through their eyes. And as a Broadway set designer told me once, yes, the Matrix, in school, that the eye is the most important part of the body when you're trying to control it. Because where the eye goes, the body follows. Which sort of sounds terrifying, but if you're thinking about this in the world of the Metaverse, that's exactly what they're doing. They cover your eyes and they put two things in your hands. And the other thing he said is that when people complain in the Broadway theater, in any theater, that they can't hear. And this was a problem 20 years ago. Now it's all audio acoustic. But if people are in your little production, wherever you are, people say, I can't hear the actors. What they mean is they want the stage to be brighter. Oh, isn't that fascinating? It's not, the eyes are tricking you. The eyes, it's dark, so you can't see them very well. Which then translates to when people try to explain what problem they're having is I can't hear them very well. Very interesting. So as a set designer, your job is to entertain that eye. And where the eye goes, the body follows. So in the spirit of that weirdness, Jana's going to be here tomorrow at 10:15 a.m., aroundabouts, giving a hardcore ASL lesson in what I asked her if she would think about doing, and she said yes last night. I have printed out some NFT artwork. I don't own this, not all of it. And I'm not using it for anything financial or anything online. But we're going to use it in her lesson tomorrow. And so she's going to take some of these selected NFT images that I printed out, and she's going to describe them using ASL classifiers. So, for example, something like this. How would you describe that? 4 eyes, a face, 2 faces, 3 faces, 4 faces. The colors, the angle, the classifier. It's going to be absolutely delightful. It's going to be a wondrous and terrific moment. And we have all kinds of... This is another one by the same artist, but you can see a sun and a moon traveling together. So, they look the same, but are they the same? No, they're not the same. They're very different. So what are the differences in describing these two works of art? That is the question we are going to face tomorrow here on Hardcore ASL with Jana Marie Sweetheart. And of course, I've asked her to, this is where it all started, trying to get her to like my new NFT that I actually own, this thing. Because I said, how would you describe this? A giant head, which I do have, the gaping mouth with the tongue and the teeth, and the little tiny body and ears. How would you describe that in ASL? Well, it's going to be interesting. You have a great printer. Interesting class. Yes, it is a wonderful, it's a laser printer, full color. It's been telling me now for 3 months that the yellow toner is out. And I printed out about 10 of these because I'm obsessed with this. And the yellow printing is fine. And that's what they say about these HP color laser printers, is you get notifications on low toner that will go on for a year. And it's kind of true. It's very annoying. So it prints great, but about once a year you have to buy all new toner, which costs about $800. Now the printer they sell you for $125, but to keep it going, it's $800 a year. And we've had many of these iterations of this particular printer, and it's just wonderful. I cannot recommend it highly enough, especially if you're doing art stuff and you want to print out beautiful things. So that's the ASL class tomorrow, coming to a screen near you in 24 hours. You're very welcome. Let's see, what is the name of the printer? I'll just tell you right here. The HP Color Laser Jet Pro M479 FDW. Now it's a scanner. You have to have the right printer paper too. We have very nice printer paper. It is a scanner and a fax, because we're old and we still use faxes. Now if you don't need the fax, it is quite a bit cheaper. But if you want a good looking color laser printer, don't get an inkjet printer. Those are terrible. We've had a lot of those too. They don't work. They're cheap. Not that they're cheap, but they are low priced, and there's a reason they're low priced. It's messy. It blurs. You cannot get this kind of color on an inkjet printer. That's laser. Laser color. So I came across this. We talk about language a lot, American Sign Language. Good, Dory. Let me know if you need any other help, because it's definitely worth every penny. It's big, though. It's a big printer. But it works. Connects to Wi-Fi. So it's a wireless printer. Works shockingly well. You just really plug it in and go. It's ready to go. And it makes color copies, and it makes copies in black and white if you want to save your colors. And they have an extra large black toner, because that's really mainly what you print. And it all works very well. I think this is like the 6th version of this particular printer, and they really, really got it right on this last one. We've had this one for about a year. The one before that we had for 2 years, and it did not work very well. It was ill-behaved. Maybe it was the particular printer, but there's probably a reason they updated it. And they did, and it worked. So we like to talk about language and language acquisition and regionality and chatting and concerts. You will need it after you try. I agree, especially when you're trying to sell stuff to people. And the color is very close to what it looks like on the screen in the reproduction of the printer, which is very rare in my experience. Colors, deep colors, are hard to replicate, especially when there's a lot of fine toning between the colors, you know. It's not just blue, it's 50 different shades of blue. 50 different shades of yellow, which my printer says it doesn't have anymore. They want my $200 for my printer. Toner. And especially the American Indian language. We've talked about that, how there are several dialects that are being lost. In China, we've discussed linguistics in China and how they want one Chinese language and all these other languages that 24 million people use. They are slowly trying to kind of outlaw them. Meaning you can't, not meaning you can't speak it, but that it's not being taught anymore. So the older you get, the less connections you have with your culture and your language, and everything just goes belly up. So when I came across this fascinating article, I thought, well, that is something to talk about. The Cockney accent from the UK, Great Britain, is in danger of being replaced. Now, the Cockney accent, as I understand, is very specifically historically known as being from the harder side of town. I don't want to say low class because I don't. Poorer side of town, economically repressed. The Cockney accent, I believe, is not something that is traditionally British. With London being the home of a variety of different ethnicities and languages now, school kids have developed their own dialect over the years, which has stemmed from multi-ethnic friendship groups, which I think is fantastic. Multicultural London English, MLE, is a dialect that has been used since at least the 1980s, which sounds ancient to some people, and to me it sounds like yesterday. At least since the 80s, and its usage and vocabulary is increasing in areas where there are a range of multilingual people. The 21st century is seeing a rise in this dialect among the younger generations, as well as working class people, which is slowly stepping away from the use of Cockney in places like Hackney. Sergio Alfonso, a linguistics expert, said the technology and social media has played a role in the rise. The rise of a dialect has now happened because of the nature of trends. With the popularity of apps, such as TikTok, different accents and pronunciation are naturally internalized in order to adapt to a change in cultural setting. The broad landscape of London and the nationalities it houses means that MLE will continue to develop and grow amongst younger generations. In research, it was found that linguistic diversity means that the local London vernacular is no longer the main English variety that children encounter at school. An example mentioned was the friendship groups in the Hackney projects, including 4 5-year-olds, including young people with parents from the Caribbean, several different African countries, Bangladesh, India, Morocco, China, Colombia, Portugal, Albania, Turkey, Middle East, as well as from local Cockney families. The English spoken by children from such diverse backgrounds is very varied. Words such as gassed, meaning excited, dead, meaning boring, moist, meaning soft or uncool, have made their way into the common vocabulary. She said they would shorten their sentences and say things like, "come shop." My Turkish friends, their parents who spoke broken English, would say stuff like, "I'm gonna go next to my mom," which means I'm gonna go to my mom. Very interesting. Because everyone was learning English from parents with broken English, they kind of involved that in their day-to-day. And then other kids around them, me for example, not me, the author, would say it the same way, thinking, oh, maybe that's the cool way of saying it. I think that's how it starts. Even saying, "come shop," for me, started with black friends from post-colonial countries. The English they speak in their countries included shortened words, so I think kids use it here. And then, us lot who rate these kids start learning from them. I also noticed different ethnicities have their own slang and the way that they pronounce some words. Aluminium and aluminum. The author says, from year 7 to year 8 or 9, I was around West African black people. So my slang was different then Then I started chilling with Somali kids and North African, so it changed again. I think that what we've come up with is a slang that everyone uses now, and there's rules to it too. Some people say you can't say bop by, you have to say bop through. I think everyone has found common ground to communicate. Even some Islamic words are becoming common. Even if you're not Muslim, everyone says wallah. So with this new dialect, there are also different pronouns. One linguist at the University of London writes about the use of man as a pronoun. In MLE, the word man is used in a first-person narrative. For example, man's not hot. Because of this dialect, according to 2010 research by Paul Kurzweil, traditional Cockney could disappear from the streets of London in the next 20 years. And what do we think of that? It makes sense. Language is always changing, always modifying. You never know what's going to happen or where you're going until you get there. And ASL is the same way. There are, regional differences in American Sign Language. People think BSL, British Sign Language, is the same as American Sign Language. It is not. They are very different. And oftentimes, the kids do take over the language. They learn it, and then they modify it how they would like it to appear and be. If you're in England or if you're in the Midwest, you have your own home signs. You have your own interesting and intricate ways of interacting with the world. And it's a very curious thing. Now we'll take one more very brief, super short break and come back and talk about plants and meat and forward-thinking economies. Back in a moment. And we are back from break. I have noticed here on Boles.tv, live every weekday at 9 a.m. Eastern, about once a show, I forget to turn on my intermission screen when I leave. So I leave this giant screen with nothing there. Nobody knows what's going on. Someone comes into the stream for the first time and says, where's the man and why am I looking at an empty chair? So there's the intermission screen. And now I'm officially back from break. So nice to see you. And it's usually about the third break that I forget to do that. It's very weird. Jana Marie here tomorrow, 10:15. American Sign Language lesson on describing NFT art in both color, substance, and style. Should be interesting. Can't wait to see it myself. So now we'll have a fun conversation about this idea of transferring people from meat to plants. And there's a lot of information on this. I have several little stories I'll share with you. I'm not going to read them all. I'm not going to run this into the ground. But it's just interesting how it's an outcropping, an upcoming detour into where we're going to eventually land, just because it's not economically sustainable to just raise animals to slaughter them and then do it all over again. There's no shortage of ideas around how we can get alternatives to meat, says a researcher at the University of Southampton in the UK. You may have seen that lab-grown meat is on sale right now in Singapore. Now, some people are very offended by lab-grown meat, and they say, even if you're vegan, you can't have it. No animal was killed, but the cells used to create the lab-grown meat were taken from a live animal. The live animal may be alive, but the cells come from an animal, so therefore a vegan cannot eat it. And I don't agree with that. And there are other hardcore vegans who say, oh no, if I'm dying and I need a pig valve or a pig heart, I choose death over using the valve of a pig. I find that foolish, because if that's the only alternative you have to live is something from an animal, don't be dumb. It's okay to do it. Just like the mayor of New York City, right? Eric Adams says he's a vegan. Well, reporters follow him. And people who are not vegan love to pick apart your vegan authenticity, even though they have none. And he's been seen eating fish out. And that's not vegan, that's, pescatarian, whatever. And instead of getting into an argument with them or defining himself or picking a fight, he says, I am perfectly imperfect. Which is my new favorite phrase of the week. And that is the right answer. Hey, if the guy wants to have a little bit of fish sometime, so what? Dr. Mcdougall, who is one of the greatest authors of books on being vegan for 30 years, eats a vegan lifestyle for his health and for his heart. He has vegan cruises where you can go on a cruise ship and just eat vegan food. He's been doing that for 30 years. But he says, because there are people out there who try to give you a hard time and try to accuse you of things, every year on Thanksgiving, he and his vegan wife, if you've ever had Mary's crackers, which are very delicious, that's Dr. Mcdougall's wife, Mary Mcdougall. And I just heard a bump and the music has stopped and now I'm freaking out. What's going on? Are we glitching? Are we in the Matrix? I don't know. Okay, there we go. So, Dr. Mcdougall says that every year on Thanksgiving, he and his wife of Mary's Crackers will have turkey. For one meal out of the year, they will eat turkey, which is not vegan. So that he does not call himself vegan. He eats a vegan diet, but he does not call himself vegan. And if someone tries to play gotcha with him, saying, I saw you. You had a piece of turkey on Thanksgiving. He says, I do every year. What are you going to do about it? Eric Adams, mayor of New York, vegan. Ah! Ma! You had fish. You're not vegan. I am perfectly imperfect. So in Singapore, it's the only place in the world where it's been approved for sale. Lab-grown meat. The nuggets cost about $23 for 4, and the bulk of them is made from plant protein, even though there's some cells from an animal in there. I think it's a wonderful idea. The UK regulator says it has no applications lodged to sell lab-grown meat. Scaling up production of lab-grown meat is hard. By comparison, food with plant-based protein has proliferated. From the soy and wheat-based fake bacon, I think is what they're saying, and other products now sold in supermarkets, to the soy-based bleeding burgers of Impossible Foods and Beyond Burgers. True. Insects are also on the agenda. 2 applications placed with the FSA in the UK and the EU have green-lighted mealworms. It's all very exciting. One prospect is using gorse. Gorse is a plant that is widespread in parts of the UK, especially Scotland. Gorse, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is a really interesting plant because it's actively being removed. People are using large amounts of herbicide and burning it back. We know it was fed to cattle in the past. We do think protein from gorse could be used as animal food. If protein isolates from gorse were shown to be safe, they could be considered for human food in the future too. It's not out of the cards. In the UK, no edible insects are currently approved for consumption, apart from a German cheese mite. However, there are 2 applications being reviewed. We're keen to do everything we can to get these products moving forward. Several Scottish farmers have recently replaced cattle by growing hemp instead. In a rush forward, will plant-based proteins be the junk food of the future? Now, that's a very interesting point because Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers are very delicious, but they have a lot of fat. Not animal fat, but fat. And it's not good for you. You cannot eat them every day because you will not be healthy. Too much fat, high calorie. But as a once-in-a-while treat, fantastic. But don't think you can eat a Beyond Burger or an Impossible Burger every day and feel good, because you won't. I do wonder whether the way environmental impacts of food are currently judged should be more aligned to the nutritional contributions food makes. For example, with milk, perhaps environmental costs can be measured per milligram of calcium. And eating more meat, having less of a certain bacteria in the gut, and a more certain immune cells in the blood, all linked with multiple sclerosis. Reports a team of researchers at the Washington School of Medicine. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease affecting fewer than 3 million people. And geography is somehow linked to the disease, perhaps involving diet. More and more evidence has suggested that bacteria may be involved in MS. The bacteria living in our guts can affect our immune system. And what we eat can affect the bacteria in our guts. So the idea of this article is that meat has the wrong kind of microbiome for your healthy gut, but plants do. So these researchers are doing testing with multiple sclerosis sufferers by changing their diet from a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet and seeing if they're going to get any kind of pushback from a health point of view. and the early returns were very encouraging. The strongest systemic linkage the researchers could find in diet for multiple sclerosis patients involved eating meat. Their analysis linked higher meat consumption to a decrease in the population of a certain gut ecology. Higher meat consumption, which was observed in the MS patients, was also linked to an increase in T helper 17 cells in the immune system and an increase in SAM in their blood. The relationship between meat eating and disability and other factors was not deterministic. Some healthy people eat a lot of meat, but the pattern of all the factors was suggestive that in multiple sclerosis patients, something goes wrong when people's gut bacteria that disassociates them from the immune system, and it tends to be associated with meat eating. And there's a new study that says a new study calls into question the primacy of meat eating in early human evolution. While the archaeological evidence for meat eating increases dramatically after the appearance of Homo erectus, the study authors argue this increase can largely be explained by greater research attention on this time period, effectively skewing the evidence in favor of meat made us human. Generations of paleontologists have gone to famously well-preserved sites in places like the Ottavai Gorge and looking for and finding breathtaking direct evidence of early humans eating meat, furthering this viewpoint that there was an explosion of meat eating after 2 million years ago. However, when you quantitatively synthesize the data from numerous sites across Eastern Africa to test this hypothesis, that meat made us human evolutionary narrative begins to unravel. Researchers found that while accounting for variation in sampling effort over time, there is no sustained increase in the relative amount of evidence for carnivory after the appearance of Homo erectus. They note that while raw abundance of modified bones and a number of zooarchaeological sites and levels all demonstrably increased after the appearance of Homo erectus, the increases were mirrored by a corresponding rise in sampling intensity. And the Biden administration is feeling some pressure. They've announced a $1 billion plan to help farmers struggling to put food, specifically meat, on America's tables. But the question is, why not invest in the future of plant-based protein instead? The bailout is intended to be a lifeline for small farmers who've seen disruptions in the workforce due to COVID-19, causing hardships for their farms, as well as inflationary prices in the market and growing meat and poultry shortages across the country. This appears to be in direct conflict with the Biden administration's pledge to reduce emissions by half by 2030. It's one thing to take trucks and cars off the roads, invest in public transportation and electrical recharging stations, but why ignore the evidence that animal agriculture accounts for a large part of the problem of carbon and methane production that leads to climate change? A shortage of meat and eggs, poultry, pork, nationwide. Rather than double down on our need for those sources of protein, we should be encouraging consumers to opt for plant-based proteins, which now come packaged in tasty and realistic meat alternatives, poultry substitutes, eggs made without the chicken. And that's true. I saw an ad, a television ad yesterday for, I believe it was Impossible Chicken Nuggets on television. One company helping American farmers convert from dairy to oats is Halsa Foods, the maker of oat milk yogurts, which are quite delicious. It started working with dairy farmers in the U.S. to offer the opportunity to grow organic oats as an alternative to raising dairy cows. And they have assembled a coalition to support the farmers with the conversion process. That takes a lot of money, a lot of time. When I was younger, a lot of the farmers who were growing corn found it a very hard crop to raise. And many of them changed to alfalfa. And then the really super smart ones, 40 years ago, saw the future and started raising soybeans. And they're making a lot of money now. They were way ahead of the curve. Farmers themselves are voluntarily making the switch to plant-based growing and decided to grow oats instead. In 2017, one farmer could not bear to send the cows to the slaughterhouse for what must be a terrifying death. The farmer originally produced dairy products, then moved to produce organic beef, and now, 3 years later, he is transitioning to produce oat milk, a more sustainable and kinder option to cow's milk. They did some work with Refarmed, an organization that helps dairy farmers transition to producing plant-based milk to transform the UK. According to the Refarmed website, by uniting together with farmers and providing them with the tools they need to move away from the dairy trade, we're offering a viable new opportunity for their businesses to be a part of the growing plant-based movement. Well, I think that's just wonderful news. And you always hope for big changes to happen, and big changes take time, dedication, and money. And if the Biden money is out there to try to help make a transition to a more sustainable source of food that comes from a plant or a bug or some kind of insect, hey, why not go for it? It might mean lower prices. And there's no saying, if you want to eat healthy, you want to be vegan, have the freshest food and vegetables, it's going to cost you a lot of money. There's no dollar menu in Whole Foods. Trader Joe's does not have a desk for $1 tofu pops. And that's the hardest thing you have to compete with, is McDonald's and the dollar menu and Wendy's, 2 burgers for $3, whatever. And that often means that people who don't have a lot of money, people who live in poorer places, are not as healthy because they cannot afford to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. People say canned is just as good, and I was raised on canned food. But nothing beats fresh from the farm. Live food, raw food, that's what you want to eat. And a salad's not enough. We don't need one more taste of iceberg lettuce in our lives. Greens, spinach, kale, bring it on. Iceberg lettuce, throw it out the window. Nobody wants it. Well, we've had a wonderful stream today. I thank you so much for being here. We've talked about Alfa Romeo NFTs. We've talked about the loss of the Cockney accent, which I just find absolutely fascinating, as kids redefine the use of language. And we talked about mouse and censorship all over the world of books and thoughts and ideas. And we talked about moving into the Metaverse, frighteningly so. It's waiting for us. It's a way to make money. Thank you, Dora. Have a good one. Now you have a good one, too. I'm so happy you're here with us. I hope to see you soon. And we move on. We cling to the past, and we try to make sense of a future that we have not yet explored. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, david@boles.tv. If you have a question for Jana, you can email her at jana@boles.tv. On Twitter, I'm @DavidBoles. Instagram, I'm Boles Books. TikTok, Boles TV. Regular old Facebook, business page, BOLES, right there. And our Discord server, I'll put the link in chat again. We're winding it up, winding it down, winding it into a machine, whatever you want to say. We're there, we're trying to get set up and going. It's a lot of interesting things, a whole new world out there, as they say. So until tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern, I wish you a wonderful day and a habitually terrific evening. And may joy and the wonder of the soul be yours and yours alone. I will see you tomorrow.